But I see, I'd like to introduce, I'm Commissioner Kramer, and I'd like to introduce my esteemed colleagues. We have Commissioner Daniela Jean here this evening, and thank you so much for being here. And we have Commissioner Joseph as well. Thank you so much. Commissioner Florimon is here as well. Let's see. I'm going to introduce the mayor, who I'm sure will come on soon. We have Commissioner Villard, Commissioner Smuckler. And so I think I've got us all. I hope I didn't leave anybody out. And I want to let everyone know that the Multicultural Committee has been a really busy committee trying to hit upon, you know, all of our different ethnicities and races. You know, we have a lot of diversity in North Miami Beach. We're extremely proud of that. And the Multicultural Committee really puts their heads together, coming up with these great programs. And I'd like to introduce my committee and thank them from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work that they do. So we have Marianne Napolitano, we have Ingrid Forbes, we have Trish Miller, we have, let's see, I don't know if Janie Greenleaf is on here, Adenia Hernandez, who is our librarian. She's a part of our committee, as well as Andrew Plotkin, who is our Parks and Recreation Director. And Lynn Sue, who actually found this group that is going to be speaking tonight. And we're going to let Lynn say a little bit if she wants. Is there anyone in my committee who I've missed? Because
Ingrid Forbes is here.
I mentioned, didn't I mention Ingrid? I think I did. If not, Ingrid Forbes, please take a bow. So I guess from here, I don't want to have, you know, we have done our introductions. I would just like this event to begin. And Lynn Sue, if you want to talk a little bit about how this came about, and then we can take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Totally caught me off guard. But yeah, I think with the situation in our social, you know, in our society, in our communities nowadays, it's important to look back a little bit and see what had happened in the past and what is it that should never ever repeat. And this was really close to my heart. I had attended, I have a good friend here. She is the founder of the Holocaust Heroes Worldwide. Her name is Moran Alfasi. And I attended one of her events, and since then I was sold, like, this is such an awesome event. And like, we don't really have a lot of time to spend with the Holocaust survivors, and I want us to spend some time with them today. So I would like you all to give a hand to my friend Moran. She will tell you more about it, and you will experience how awesome it is to be a part of this. Thank you so much. And I want to share it with everyone in the city. All righty. Take it away, Moran.
Before you start, Moran, just housekeeping. If everybody could please mute themselves, we'd really appreciate that, so we don't get too much interference. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Commissioner Kramer and the Multicultural Committee of North Miami Beach. You know, this event in this International Remembrance Day is actually so special. I was so happy when Lynn reached out to me, because this is exactly our goal, to reach communities from all walks of life and to give you the opportunity to listen to this special voice of the Holocaust survivors who are still here to share the story and their message. For those of you who don't know me, that it's most of you, my name is Moran Alfasi. I'm originally from Israel, and I've been here for many years already. I myself, I'm a third generation. My grandma Leah was a Holocaust survivor, and she was my hero. And not only because the fact that she was in the Holocaust, but mainly because who she chose to be during the Holocaust, during the time she was in Auschwitz. She found the strength in her to take under her wing 3 girls and save them and make sure that they have enough food and have enough strength to survive. And since I started this organization, I really discovered that each one of the survivors is a hero in his own way. Each one of them have a special story, and they have such a powerful voice and such a powerful message for acceptance and unity that is so needed, especially today. And I really invite you to listen to the story and know that, yes, it's something that happened mainly to the Jewish people. Not only, we were not the only one that were affected during the Holocaust. And at the same time, it's not belong to the Jewish people, it's belong to the world. It's relevant for today. And the only way to make sure that it wouldn't happen today is to actually remember and talk about it and understand the impact it have for generation to come. So I would love to introduce Irene, our dear Irene Zisblatt. Every time I have a hard time pronouncing your last name, but you'll get to know her once you start sharing her story. She is an incredible speaker. She shared her story. She was a child survivor when she was in Auschwitz. She was only 13. She was saved, and she took her story and she making sure to share her story today with schools, with kids, with adult, with young adult, with all ages and all walks of life, and making sure that the message of acceptance and unity will keep on living in every person that hear her story. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing. It's the third time today that you're going to share your story, and I know it takes something from you. And I do have to acknowledge all the Holocaust survivors that find the strength to share their story, go back to those days who are not easy, and to share it for us as part of your mission and commitment for a better future. So thank you. Irene, take it away. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you, Maureen, so much. And you're right, this is my third Zoom today, so my voice is a little groggy, but I'll make it through. So I want to first thank everyone for choosing to serve as the witness to the witness. I also want to thank everyone for remembering this sad day in our lives. I am a child survivor of man's hatred. I am the only survivor of my family. That places on me a double duty to bear witness. I feel that there is a pressing need to educate our future generation about the Holocaust and the evil that took place at that time in history. We must learn that genocide is possible anytime, any place. But first, we must examine the effects of inhumanity. The Holocaust provides what such a world looks like. I survived the most awful places on earth: Auschwitz, Birkenau, Majdanek, a labor camp, and a death march. There, a human life had no value. In Birkenau, when the cattle trains brought so many people to their death, all day as well as at night, I was woken up every night from the barking dogs, the shootings, the stamping of thousands of feet, and cries of desperation in different languages. At night, the atrocities and my sleeplessness gave me a vivid sense of existing in a factory of death, where Hitler and his henchmen extinguished 6 million innocent lives. 1.5 million were children. They were children just like our children, but they were dragged out from their homes and put behind electric barbed wire fences and murdered. Birkenau had no clocks. The SS created a different kind of time. It was marked by the arrival of the cattle trains, the roll calls, and the children on the road to heaven, through which they became ashes. Their faces constantly appear in front of me, and I know that I must fight this darkness. I was saying to myself over and over again, I must live as long as I can for those little children. I remember when Hitler gave the order that all Jews must be exterminated. We had no place to go. We were thrown out of every country and our suffering had no end. My mother was also very sad when she didn't see us children play anymore. She tried to give us away, not because she didn't love us, but because she tried to save us. She raised us with so much love and care, but no one wanted to help her. The SS took her, my father, and all my siblings, but they wouldn't let me go with them. I saw my family go into the chamber of death. My mother gave me her diamonds, and that is the only valuable connection to her that I have. I couldn't pray on that day, but for some reason, they let me live. It is now 76 years after the Holocaust, and still, things like a train or a railroad track brings my yesterdays into today. I'd like to share some of my yesterdays with you, not to make you hate them, but to tell you what hatred does. I am a Hungarian Jew. The devastation of Hungarian Jews was the worst murder of men, women, and children in the last days of the war. When Hitler was facing defeat, he brought the Holocaust to Hungary. I was born there in a beautiful resort town in the mountains. We were only 263 families and only a third was Jewish. As far back as I can remember, we had a good relationship with our non-Jewish neighbors and friends. We didn't have any television or iPods or telephones, but we had each other. We children were always together in the parks, in schools, and at home. The mountains we lived in had the most natural resources in all of Europe. Mineral water was one of them and still is today. My father was part owner of a spa and he used this water for people that have muscular problems. He devoted his life to help everyone. My sibling, my friends, and I loved living in those beautiful mountains, but not far from us in Germany, Hitler was ending democracy and was lining up his henchmen, the SAs, which are stormtroopers, the SS, the security police, and the Gestapo, the special state police. Our government was an ally to Germany and chose not to deport the Jews yet, instead ordered harsh restrictions. From 1939 until 1944, Hungarian Jews were stripped of their rights and entitlements as they had never existed. In addition, the men and boys were forced into labor units where they were poorly clothed, ill-fed, and ultimately murdered. At the age of 9, I was thrown out of the one thing I loved most, my school, because I was a Jew. And from that day on, my life changed, and so did the world. My non-Jewish friends ignored me. My education and freedom was taken away from me, and my hopes were destroyed by Nazi hatred. We didn't see any SS in our town yet, but their evil was carried out by the Arrow Cross, the Hungarian SS. They were, pick up the receiver in here. They were feared by all people. Our food was running out and they wouldn't let us buy in any store. A curfew was enforced and we had to wear the yellow star. I will never forget the sadness in my parents' faces when we children were hungry and they had no food to give us. Once a cow wandered into our backyard and my mother risked her life during curfew, climbed out the back window and milked the cow. And that was the only time that we had milk. I was the oldest of 6 children. I had 4 brothers and 1 sister. Every day, the Nazis ordered new restrictions for us. After they stripped us of our dignity, they demanded our valuables. I heard my mother say to my father, First, they made our start into a badge of shame, and now they want to rob us of our feelings, of being worthy enough of owning something of value. I think my mother sewed her diamonds into my skirt to save our pride. And then she gave them to me with a purpose, to buy bread if I get hungry. In 1939, when Poland was invaded, a few men were able to escape over the mountains to us. My father, with his friends, helped them to safety. Their destination, Palestine. I don't know if they ever made it to Palestine, but one night a man had to spend the night in my home because it wasn't safe to go on. And I heard him beg my father, take your family and come with me, because when the SS come to you, they will kill your children just like they do in Poland. I couldn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, the man was gone, and I asked my father, who are those SS? And why are they killing the children? What have the children done? And my father said, the man wasn't himself. He didn't know what he was saying. People don't do such a things. See, he didn't believe that the most civilized country in all of Europe was doing such a barbaric thing, especially to children. So we didn't believe the man and we didn't go with him. We also didn't believe that we are going to be invaded by the SS because the war was almost over. Besides, we were in this little town surrounded by mountains and rivers, and there were so few of us. We didn't think that they were going to bother and come and try and find us. And just then, my country was trying to extricate itself from the alliance with Germany. And Hitler got so mad, he ordered his army to invade Hungary and deal with the Jewish problem. The next day, each person had to pack a little suitcase, not to exceed 24 kilo, and go to a ghetto. I didn't even know what a ghetto was, but I had to leave my home. The ghetto was a brickyard, but there were no bricks being manufactured. There were just people suffering everywhere. So when we got there, there was no shelter left. So my parents made a hut from the tablecloths that my mother packed in her suitcase. And that was our new home. We were fenced in like animals and guarded like criminals. Once a day, we were allowed to go to the river that surrounded the ghetto, just to drink a little water. They wouldn't let us wash our face or our clothes. They wouldn't even let us bring water back to the sick people or the little children. We children were always afraid to be taken away from our parents or being beaten for no reason at all. Every day they took men and boys to work. Many of them never came back. And then the cattle trains came, and they told us that we are being relocated to the vineyard in our own country. So that was great because everyone was so happy to leave this hellish place and go to the vineyard. My father and mother again packed our suitcases, and my mother told me that if we work in separate places in the vineyard, and if I get hungry, to use the diamonds to buy bread. When I saw the cattle trains, I asked my father, why are we going to work in cattle trains? And my father said, the vineyard isn't that far away. It wouldn't be so bad. But when they forced 100 people into each boxcar and a small pail with no water in it, later I found out that that was our bathroom. I sensed that something is very wrong. When they locked the doors from the outside, we were in complete darkness. A crack in the wall was the only light we had. My father was standing by the crack to see how far away we are from the vineyard. And the boxcar was so bad. There was no room to sit or stand. People were holding on to each other and just praying for safety and struggling to stay alive. The children were crying, they were cold and hungry. And then my father saw through the crack that we're not going to the vineyard. And he said, they lied to us. We just left our country and crossed the border to Poland. I was holding my 2-year-old little brother in my arms and he never stopped crying. He wasn't crying because he was hungry. He just wanted to go home. And I promised him that we will be home very soon. But when my father said that we are going to Poland, I remember the man, what he said about what they were doing to the children of Poland. So I held my little brother so tight, and I promised myself that I will never let the SS take him away from me. My little brother never saw his home again. We were in the boxcar for about, I don't know, 3-4 days, 3 nights, 4 days, 4 nights, 5 days, something like that. And the entire time I was wishing that the train would stop so we could go to a real bathroom like normal people. But most I was wishing that they would give the children some food and water and maybe they will stop crying. And the boxcars were so bad that when the train stopped, I thought that we had survived the worst, but I was wrong. When the doors opened, the SS with their vicious dogs yelling in German, "Raus, schnell, verfluchte Juden, get out quickly, you dirty Jews, and make it fast." They immediately separated men from women, the older children from their mothers. They made us leave our belongings at the train and told us that the men will bring it to us later. We never saw our fathers, brothers, or our belongings. As we were passing the cattle train, I saw chimneys in the distance, and I pointed them out to my mother. And the factories we are going to work in, I said. But she paid no mind to me. In this chaos, she was trying to hold us together. She took my little brother from my arms and told me to hold my 4-year-old little sister's hand really tight so she doesn't get lost. A man in a striped jacket came over and he offered to carry my little brother, but my mother wouldn't let him. But she asked him, "Where are we?" And he said, "Auschwitz." But we didn't know what Auschwitz was or why we were there. There were 3 long cattle trains packed with people waiting to get off behind the one we just got off. And I again looked at the chimneys and I couldn't believe that the Nazis had so many factories, that they needed so many of us to go to work for them. Little did I know that we were the daily ration for the gas chamber. When Hitler declares the assault on Hungarian Jews, it was during the final solution. The final solution meant that not one Jew will survive to bear witness. And in 54 days, on 147 cattle trains, 437,402 Hungarian Jews were in Auschwitz. And that was only from the rural cities. The big cities were already gone. When we passed the cattle trains, a handsome SS man wearing white gloves and a baton-like stick in his hand, he appeared in front of us and he pointed that stick at my mother and yelled at her, "Put the child down and go to the right." But my mother, being so desperate to keep us together, she yelled back at him, "My children will go with me." He got so angry that she did not obey him. He hit my hand with such a force between my little sister and I. I had to let go of her little hand forever. We were both bleeding, and I begged him, let me go with my family, but he just kicked me away from them. And then I heard my mother call out to me, don't cry, I will come for you later. That was the last time I heard my mother's voice. A few minutes later, I was in a huge hall with thousands of people, but I was alone. The SS men and women with their vicious dogs again yelling at us, take your clothes and shoes off and hold them in one hand, and take your valuables and put them in the bin. And I remembered my mother's diamonds in my skirt, so I quickly took the skirt, and I didn't have time to look so thoroughly, but I found 4 diamonds. And so I had no place to put them or hide them, so I put them in my mouth. After they shaved my long hair and they branded me with a number, took my number away, took my name away, I saw in front of me that they were pulling people's gold teeth from their mouth. I didn't have any gold teeth in my mouth, but my mother's diamonds were in my mouth. And I knew that when they find them, they will take them away and shoot me for not putting them in the bin. So for fear, I swallowed the diamonds. After, they gave me a piece of garb that barely covered my body, and they pushed us out to the courtyard. At the door was a huge mirror, and they ordered us to look at ourselves. I didn't recognize myself. I was reduced to a number that represented a nothing. I was stripped of my identity and my dignity. But you see, that was their first process of dehumanizing us. And then they lined us up in rows of 5 and marched us into a place called Birkenau, a planet of evil. The SS locked the electric barbed wires gate behind us, never to let us out. It was spring, but flowers and grass didn't grow there. The sky was as gray as the mud under my feet. The wooden barracks with 3-story bunks were our luxury housing. 1,000 of us in each barrack and 10 of us in each bunk didn't give us much hope to ever to get out. Our food for the day was a cup of brown liquid they called soup, seasoned with a chemical that was destroying our reproductive organs. The twice-a-day roll call wasn't just to take count, but Dr. Joseph Mengeler's haven for human guinea pigs for his inhuman experiments. We were completely cut off from the outside world. At the end of the day, when my mother didn't come for me, I decided to go look for her, because with my hair shaved, she will not be able to find me or recognize me. But when I got to the door, the capo slapped my face and yelled at me, where are you going? And when I told her, she pointed to the chimneys and said, your mother is just about now coming out of one of those chimneys. And if you don't go back to your bunk, all of you will go there today. I was so scared. I was so confused. Why is she saying that about my mother? My mother was only 32 years old, and she never did anything wrong. Why would anybody do this to my mother? But I had no answers to my questions. So I climbed up to my bunk and I tried to go to sleep, hoping that when I wake up, this madness will be gone. But I couldn't fall asleep because the cries of little children from the outside were so sad. We didn't have any windows in our barrack, but we had a 3-inch opening between the ceiling and the wall. So I looked out that little opening and I saw trucks coming down the road. And 2 little children fell out of the trucks. They were this little. And the SS man picked them up by their little feet and he just threw them against the truck. The blood was everywhere. He threw them back on the truck like 2 pieces of firewood. these little children that committed no sin will never smile again. I was so helpless and I didn't know what to do, so I started to scream. But the girl next to me put her hand on my mouth and begged me not to scream or talk because the punishment was death. So in my silence, I called to God, but God wasn't there. I was thinking, where is he and why isn't he helping these little children? I was so angry with him. I had the biggest fight with my God. But then I said, why am I fighting with God? God didn't create the Holocaust, men did. So in my childish mind, I figured it out that God must be in a place where he is helping other children. And when he is done, he will surely come and help us. Against all impossibilities, I was not losing faith. And the next day, I was selected by Dr. Joseph Mengele for his brutal experiments. I was no longer a 13-year-old child. My childhood couldn't continue in the death camps, but in a desperate effort, I had to try and save my mother's diamonds that carries her love and her sacrifice. Once a day, we were allowed to go to the latrine. So if you saw Schindler's List, you know what the latrine looked like. I never had the pleasure to sit on one of those holes because I had to find a safe place to retrieve my mother's diamonds. It would have been safer to throw them away when I realized that I cannot buy bread for them because I just couldn't. But the love and the pride they carried was stronger than the Nazi hatred. I saw hatred so strong when Dr. Mengele was experimenting on us without anesthetics, and the pain was so unbearable. I saw joy in his eyes watching me suffer. That kind of a hatred existed in the 20th century in Nazi Germany. When the SS packed the gas chambers with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and grandparents, I was there. I saw them and I heard them cry out for the last time, remember us, or Shema Israel. That moment, my will to live became stronger and more important. I promised to be their voice if I survived this evil. Those children's voices were silenced in the most unspeakable terror in the Holocaust, just because their eyes were not blue enough, or their skin not light enough, or they were Jewish. Those 1.5 million children are depending on us to carry their message, never again. When Nazi doctors were torturing us and the pain was so unbearable, we knew that we must endure and live as long as we can for those children. During the experiments, I had a silent friend. Her name was Sapka. Even in our pain, we couldn't cry because the punishment was death, even though we never knew whether we survived the experiment. And then they took Sapka away. And at the end of the day, when she didn't return, I just assumed that she went to the gas chamber because that's what Mengele did with his guinea pigs when he was done with them. I was so lost without her. And then the SS called a selection, and I was selected with 1,500 women, and we went to the gas chamber. When we were going into the gas chamber, we realized that the gas chamber is not big enough for 1,500 people. So we started to push out, and I was pushed back to the door. And when I got to the door, I dug my nails into the side of the door. And I just hung on not to get pushed back inside. Not that I was going to be rescued or anything, but I just wanted to be outside as long as I could. And then the Cyclone B gas arrived, and the guard, the assessment, got the order to close the door so they can throw the gas. See, when the gas got there, they immediately had to throw it because they were always afraid that the Sonderkommando would confiscate it and use it on them. So he had to obey at any cost, but I was in the way and he couldn't close the door. So he threw me out and he closed the door and he left. And I was going to follow him, but I don't know where he went. I didn't see him leave. He just disappeared. I walked up the ramp that I just came down, and I was looking for a place to hide. And I saw that the gas chamber is really underground, but the roof of the gas chamber is on top of the ground. And between the, underneath the roof of the gas chamber and the ground, there was about this much space. And being I only weighed about 50 pounds, I was able to crawl underneath. So as I was lying there, I was thinking, what's the sense? In about 20 minutes, another group of people they will bring in to go to the gas chamber, and they will find me and take me back in there. And then a miracle happened. A Sonderkommando boy saw me first when he was going to take the people to the oven. And he pulled me out and covered my naked body with his jacket and told me that he's going to try and put me on a train that is going to a labor camp. He spoke in Hungarian, so I knew that he was from my country. So I asked him, where are you from and what is your name? But he just said, that is not important. I only have 3 days left to live, and if you make it, live a little for me too. That is when I knew how much I wanted to stay alive. Can you imagine, out of 6 gas chambers in Birkenau, the number 3 gas chamber was the only one that had a railroad track coming really close to this gas chamber. So what was it? Was I lucky? Was I lucky to be sent to the number 3 gas chamber instead of number 4 or 5? Did God yell down to this boy, save this child? I don't know what happened, but I'm glad that it did, because I wouldn't be here today. So we were on this train and we were only moving at night so we don't know where we were or where we were going. And when the train stopped, we were in a camp, and the train unloaded his cargo and left. That showed us that no one leaves this camp. We were put in barracks and in bunks just like in Auschwitz. And in the morning, I looked down my lower bunk and another miracle happened. My silent friend Sapka was looking straight at me. I will never forget that. That was such a gift that we found each other again. We both thought that we went to the gas chamber. But here we are, and now we didn't know whether we were allowed to talk here or not, because in Auschwitz we couldn't. And so, but we didn't have to. We just knew that from here on in, we will be together no matter where it takes us. So we worked in different places, but we saw each other every night. And we worked in these factories until January of 1945. In 1945, in January, they gave us a blanket and a pair of wooden clocks that didn't fit. And 5,000 women that were in that camps were herded out to a March of the Living. The March of the Living meant that we were marching away from freedom. We were so cold and hungry that we were giving up. We decided maybe we can last until tomorrow, but we kept going and we kept pushing and we kept hoping and fighting for life every single day. They never gave us any food or water, so we ate the snow that we walked on. We lost our shoes in the snow, so the blanket they gave us, Sapka and I tore one blanket and we wrapped our feet up so we can walk in the snow. Every few feet, they would shoot a bunch of people and left them on the wayside. The ones that were shot were still struggling to die. And Sapka and I were helpless. We couldn't help them live and we couldn't help them die. We couldn't believe this unreal world that we were in. And then we decided we're going to give up. So we're going to sit down on the road, and when they tell us to march, we will not move. So they will have to shoot us. And so just then, planes appeared from behind the mountains, and they were bombing everything that was moving. But we were on this narrow road between mountains and forests. And the only thing that were moving was us and the trucks that were carrying the supplies for the SS. So needless to say that they were bombed to smithereens. So the SS pushed us off the road and left us with the dogs to guard us while they were checking if there were any survivors from the bombing. I don't know if there were any survivors, but when they came back, they ordered us to march again. But I didn't want to march anymore. So I did sit down on the road and I was waiting for someone to shoot me. But Sapka pulled me into the lineup and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Sapka, I don't want to go anymore. We don't know where we're going. And when we get there, they're going to shoot us anyway." And she says, "I know where we're going. We're going to the library and we're going to read a book. And then we're going to go home and we're going to have dinner with our family. And then we're going to sleep in our own bed and we won't have to share it with 10 people. So you can't die today." But that was a dream and a wish that we will never have. Sapka and I were each other's strength. We survived the pain in Auschwitz from Mengele's experiments. We survived the hunger pain and the pain of losing our families. But I don't know how much longer we can stay alive. And then she said, "I know we're going to die, but before we do, we need to have some real food." I said, "Some what?" She says, "Real food. My favorite food is scrambled eggs. What is yours?" I says, "Sapka, I only want a small little loaf of bread all to myself, so I don't have to share it with 20 people. But why do we need to eat food? We're going to die." And she says, "Yeah, but we can't go to heaven on an empty stomach." See, words that we would say to each other were very important, because words that meant so much at that time made us want to move on and push forward and fight for life and fight for survival. So I said, okay. So I marched, and a few miles before, she pulled me out of the lineup and she threw me into the ditch. See, we were on this narrow road between forests, and it was so dark that night that we hardly can see each other. And she jumped after me and she says, "Be quiet. When they pass, we're going to go the other way." I said, "Sapka, are we going to escape?" She says, "Yeah. God created this dark night, so we should be able to escape." And so escape we did. All night long, we ran and walked as fast as we could. At daybreak, we saw an abandoned farm in the distance. So I ran in front of her and I started digging in the ground. And she said, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm looking for the food that's going to take us to heaven." She says, "In this mud?" I said, "Sapka, this is no mud. This is a farm. My grandfather had a farm. And I know that every harvest, there was always food left in the ground." So I kept digging and I found a little potato. I said, "See, this is the food we're going to go to heaven with." So then we heard water running. So we followed the sound and we found this wonderful little brook with the cleanest water that we saw in a long time. We were so rich. We had this little potato and clean water. So we shared the potato and drank a lot of water, and then decided to just rest there. We shared the potato, drank a lot of water, and we went to sleep. I don't know how long we slept, but someone was poking us with the back of a rifle and woke us up. And Sapka said immediately, I don't want to come out of the blanket. I don't want to see who's going to shoot us. And I said, Sapka, let go of the blanket and I'm going to see who's going to shoot us. See, Sapka was a little older than me and she was very smart, but I was more daring. I just wanted this to end one way or the other. And so she says, I don't want to see who's going to shoot me, so I'm not going to get out from my blanket. I says, well, I will. So I stuck my head out and I saw two soldiers in strange uniforms and strange boots and spoke a very strange language. I spoke several languages and I couldn't understand them. And when I spoke to them, they couldn't understand me either. They were looking at me with such a disbelief. God knows I didn't look human. My eyes were bulging out of my head. My bones were sticking out of my skin. I was covered with lice and dirt. And I weighed about 45, 50 pounds. And one of them bending down, I don't know whether he wanted to pick me up from the bottom, or he was helping me to get up. But as he was bending down, his dog tags fell out of his shirt. And on the dog tags, he had a little mezuzah, little 10 commandments. And I said, Sapka, come out of the blanket. There is another Jew here. And she says, well, who is he? I says, I don't know. She says, I'm not coming out of the blanket. See, at that point, Sapka and I thought that we were the only two Jewish people left alive in all of Europe. But she wouldn't come out of the blanket. So I gathered all my strength to stand up and hold this little 10 commandments. And he helped me. He put it in my hand and I kissed it. And then he motioned for me to stay, and he took his buddy and they took off. A few minutes later, so many of them came down that mountain towards me. And I again begged Sapka to come out. I says, there are so many of them and they all look the same. But she says, who are they? I says, I don't know. She says, well, I'm not coming out of the blanket. They had a German-speaking soldier, so I was able to communicate with him. But he looked at me and said, who are you hiding from? And why do you look like this? And I tried to explain that I was in a death camp and on a death march, and he didn't know what I was talking about. He was so angry. He yelled, what kind of people do this to children? And I again tried to explain. And I said, but just in spite the lice and the dirt all over me, he hugged me and he made me feel that I belong to somebody. And then I got angry because I didn't know who he was and I was afraid that maybe he might be an enemy. So I yelled at him and I asked, who are you? And he said, don't be afraid. We are Americans. I said, Sapka, come out of the blanket. Do you believe this? She says, no, I don't believe this. I says, but I think I should believe him. I looked up to heaven and I said to God, I believe him. So thank you for watching over us. I cannot find the words high enough describe our liberators, but because they were just so great. They helped us to believe that there are still people in this world that care. I saw so much love in their eyes. I wanted to hug them and thank them for finding us, but I was so dirty and I didn't want them to look like me. And then he asked me, what would you like to eat? Oh my God. That's when Sapka came out from under the blanket. And not because she wanted to eat first, but she asked, can we just have a little bit of scrambled eggs and a small loaf of bread so our wish becomes a reality? Within minutes, there was little fires all over because a big fire would have given us away where we are. See, this group of soldiers were part of General Patton's brigade, and they were cut off from the brigade in these mountains. So General Patton went on because he always wanted to be first everywhere. And so he gave them an order to fight the snipers because there were a lot of snipers in that mountain. So they were there to do that, and they found us in the process. So they took us, they took care of us. And so they had these little fires all over the mountain, and they were scrambling eggs in their helmets. They didn't have any bread, but they had these brown boxes. So they opened them up and there were lots of crackers inside. So all of a sudden I had a pile of crackers in front of me. I was very happy with the crackers, and Sapka was so happy with her scrambled eggs. And they made our wish become a reality. After they gave us clean shirt and we went back to the river, to the little brook, and we buried the clothes we had on and washed our bodies and put on these new shirts. When we came back, they had a Red Cross van, and inside there were 2 beds with pillows and blankets and white sheets. We were not sure that that was for us, so we sat on the floor for a while. But when no one came in, we sat on the bed. It was the greatest feelings to know that we will not have to share this bed with 10 people. But we started to think about our families and knew that we will never see them again. The feeling was different, and we just cried ourselves to sleep. In the morning, when I got up, Sapka was still sleeping. I was calling her, but she didn't answer me. I said, Sapka, you have to get up now because this might be the day that we will be free. So we have to face the new free world together. So get up. But she didn't get up. So the medic came in to tell us that we have to get ready to leave because the enemy is closing in and we have to get out of here or we will be caught in harm's way. So I asked him to help her to wake her up because she's too tired to wake up herself. And I saw he gave her an injection, but he didn't wake her up. So I yelled at him, wake her up now. But he says, I can't wake her up. She is sleeping in a very beautiful place. She's no longer sick or hungry, and she knows that you are free. I said, what are you talking about? She was never sick. He says she was very sick. She died in her sleep of a disease called typhus, and we can't help her. So please, tell me where you want us to bury her body, because we must go. But my heart was so full of grief. I questioned myself. If I could have done something to help her stay alive a little bit longer. The loss was so unbearable. Again, I was losing my loved ones again. She was going to be my friend and family forever. But it didn't work out that way. And I was alone again. I didn't even spend enough time at her graveside because we had to get out of there. We buried her in the place where these wonderful people gave us a chance to be human again in this free world. And after the war, I went back with them to take her body to a real cemetery, but we couldn't find her because the mountain was so destroyed from fighting in the war. So they left me in a field hospital with all the wounded soldiers, and they went on to fight the war because this was still in April before it was over. And when I got a little stronger, they put me in a displaced person camp The closest one was in Austria, in Salzburg. And I joined 40 children to go to Sweden to an orphanage. And while I was waiting to go to Sweden, my name appeared on a list of survivors in New York. My father had a brother living in New York, and I didn't know of him. I didn't know that he had a brother in New York, but he called the camp and he asked if they can find me and asked me if I want to come to a new family and a new country. I screamed so loud, they must have heard me all the way to New York. So I gave up my spot to another child to go to Sweden, and I waited 2 years to go to this wonderful country. I couldn't believe that I was going to the greatest free country in the whole world. And finally, in 1947, I saw what a free country looks like for the first time in my life. After many encounters with death, I survived Hitler's atrocities, and now I must rebuild my life. But first, I must find the way to be the voice I promised to be for those children. But I couldn't, because who is going to believe a child such a evil, such a nightmare? So that was one of the reasons that I did not share my past in the Holocaust for 50 years after. My best friends never knew that I was a Holocaust survivor. I couldn't tell about my torturers that almost destroyed humanity and nations around the world. But in 1994, when Schindler's List came out, I knew that it is my duty to bear witness. It was difficult to describe so much sorrow and pain. Even in my free world, my nightmares were the same, except the ashes were grayer, the cries were louder, and the children's pain in their faces were clearer. When I woke up, I had to force myself to think where I was. So how can I be the voice I promised to be? I tried to think about my tomorrows because my yesterdays were all about Auschwitz and Birkenau. And then I thought maybe the camps, with my experience, could be lessons for humanity. So I must learn from my yesterdays and share them with the present and future generation. Since I was only 13 years old when I endured so much pain and I witnessed so much injustice against humanity, I knew that the children of tomorrow can learn from my pain. So I realized that I must be witness. So I went back to the death camps with 5,000 teenagers from 49 countries on the March of the Living. When I entered Auschwitz in Birkenau, I was so mad. I couldn't believe how much evidence they destroyed so the world should know what they have done. But I went in and I was scared, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I wanted to mainly yell at Mengele because he always yelled at us, but I didn't want to scare these children. So I looked around, and what used to be the gypsy camp was still barracks that were not destroyed. So I went inside, and on the top of my voice, I yelled at him, "Look at me. I am alive, in spite of your experiments that you tortured me and Sapka and so many others. You send the flames, so many people to the flames, and I am back with 5,000 healthy children, and you cannot touch us." Since there is no room for hatred in my life, that was my revenge. And then I went to the number 2 gas chamber, where my entire family was murdered. And again, I was angry. What was a gas chamber is now a pile of bricks. But in 1994, those bricks were not falling apart yet. So I found an opening and I crawled inside. 50 years on the anniversary of the Holocaust, I was again in the gas chamber. The walls were still green and blue from the Cyclone B gas. The smell was still very strong, and the fear of death still embraced me. I sat down on the ground and lit all the candles I had in my backpack, and I prayed for the victims that died such a cruel death. And I stayed there for a while. But as I was leaving the gas chamber, I looked back and I saw a dinner table set for a dinner, and my whole family was sitting around it. And next to my little sister was an empty chair, and that was my chair. So I was trying to go to the table and sit in my chair. But my mother put her hand in front of me and she said, "You cannot sit in your chair today. Promise me," she actually yelled at me, "promise me that you will stop crying and you will do what you must." I reached out to hug her, but she wasn't there. So I went back to my candles and I sat on the floor and I wrote her a letter. And I like to share the letter with you. I will not cry anymore, and I will never forget the children who died such a cruel death because their faces were not light enough, or they were Jewish. I will never forget the painful look in their eyes when they marched to their death. Dear Mother, this letter I am writing to you is very special. I want to tell you how much I miss you. I missed you on my wedding day, and you could not share my happiness. But most I miss you when I gave birth to your grandchildren and you could not hold them. It is difficult to live with the fact that you were cheated of enjoying them. As for me, being a mother today, I can feel the pain you felt when your children died in your arms from the gas. For me, there is no medicine I can take to heal my pain. I am still learning to live with it. But I promise you to tell the world all that happened. And I hope that God will help me to stay strong. And I pray that He watches over our children of tomorrow so they can remember the past and never be silent when they see injustice against people. What happened to us should never happen again. And on this day, I am making a commitment to help heal the sickness of hatred. And when I can't help heal anymore, I hope to sit in my chair and tell them that they are being learned from. When I came up from the gas chamber, I shared my past with the future generation for the first time in 50 years. I was grateful for the courage and the liberation of this road of murder, where the SS trained me not to step over them and not to cry for them. Today, I want to say to them, I survived your atrocities and I cry for the dead. And I walk among people that value human lives. And I have not shut up since. After that, I have spoken to many, many people around the world, including our government. I cannot believe that I am alive today and I shared my painful past with the most powerful government in the world. But sharing my past with our future generation is most important because they are going to be that government in the future. And it is going to be up to them to make sure that everyone is free to practice their beliefs. So if they'll remember the Holocaust, they will never let it happen again. The Holocaust is not just a part in history, it lingers in the present. Think about Rwanda and Bosnia and Africa. In 9/11, our own country, perhaps when we were forgetting how powerful hatred can be, 9/11 reminded us, and we tasted violence and mass death. So we must absolutely be aware of hatred and change people's mind about hating others. Otherwise, it will cause another unexplainable event like the Holocaust. We must learn the lessons of the Holocaust to bring awareness of this unfairness to humanity and never forget what hatred leads to. If we stand up against prejudice and promote tolerance, it will change lives and behaviors. We must work together to protect the future of human existence for generations to come. And it has to start with them, with our future generation. They are the first generation to be at a distance of the Holocaust and the last generation to hear survivors firsthand. None of their children will be able to meet a survivor, so they have a very important mission to tell, to teach their children what they learned from survivors. I need them to help me to bring a good understandings about this painful event. When I am no longer here, I hope that they will carry my message to the future so those fires of hell become a light of hope. All the technological devices my generation created in our lifetime, we failed to create a tool to stop genocide. But they have the power to change the world, and my mission is to help them find that tool. It was easy for Hitler to take our lives, but it is difficult for us to get Hitler out of our lives. So please, join my children and grandchildren who will tell and retell of our losses in order to stop genocide. And I will not be silent and will not forget the victims. As long as I am able, I will speak worldwide to improve human conditions. My goal is to make a difference in one person every time I share my past. I cannot explain that dark time in my childhood, but we must remember it. It is important to recall the past so our lives and generations to come have more meaning. The memory and the Holocaust and the lessons of the Holocaust are not negotiable and not a subject to be forgotten. I relive my pain again and again so present and future generations can learn from it. I came forth to share my degrading experience and hope that my personal story will influence you and everyone else to come to work for tolerance and understanding. I don't want the world to forget what happened to us because I don't want it to happen again. For too long, hatred, fear, and intolerance have torn apart families, communities, and nations around the world. If our world is to achieve lasting peace, all people must learn that even we come from different backgrounds, races, and culture, we all have the same dream for our children. The world has not learned yet from past histories, not just the Holocaust, but histories before. And I cannot explain Auschwitz and Birkenau and its genocide of Jews and others. But this painful event teaches us what is important in life. So no matter how small they think they are, they can make the biggest difference. So, and if you remember the Holocaust, that will be a lasting memorial to the victims. So embrace the past and learn from it. In spite of the chemicals in my soup and Mengeler's experiments, I have a 6-foot-tall, gorgeous son and a beautiful, beautiful daughter and 5 grandchildren that light up my life every single day. My mother's diamonds and I also survived the atrocities, and they are to be handed down to each firstborn girl in every generation to preserve my mother's memory. They are not to be sold or traded, except, God forbid, if they are hungry, they are to buy bread. So I want to thank you for today. And I will be very happy to answer any questions that you have. And yes.
Thank you.
I spoke to a law firm this morning, and everybody asked me about what happens when I go on the March of the Living. So we go on a March of the Living, and we go everywhere. And when I trace the step of my loved ones on that day in Birkenau, we march from Auschwitz to Birkenau, I hear children cry out to me, and they say to me, tell them, while their tears are still in their eyes. And they will ask you, why did they kill us? And you must tell them that we were human, and we loved, and we rejoiced, and we were proud of who we are. And that's why they murdered us. Because their hatred was so blind. And that's what happens. So I tell the kids what I hear when we walk down that terrible route from the train to the gas chamber. And I also tell them, fight hatred. Never let something go by without reporting or doing something about it. Because you can't be beautiful if you hate.
Thank you, Irene. Usually, from my experience inside of, it's always amazing for me to hear your story. I heard it so many times. Every time I start crying, and every time I discover something new, I'm listening and I'm discovering something new in your story. And I want to share with people that actually Irene wrote a book, which is, it's basically much more, you have her story, but with much more details. And it's a beautiful book. It's called The Fifth Diamond. I did share the link for Amazon in it. It's actually a way for you to purchase that directly from her. And it's worthwhile. It was recommended by Steven Spielberg when she actually traveled Europe with him and took part in his movie.
The Last Days.
Yes, The Last Days. I do usually, like in this part, people can ask questions either on the chat if they prefer, or I actually like basically offering for you to open your mic and just trust that we can all have a conversation and share your feelings and ask questions that you would like to ask Irene. So if anybody have a question.
Please raise your hand and we will open the mics.
So Stacy.
Thank you.
Stacy, keep them raised.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Stacey.
Hi,
Oh,
Irene.
thank you. Hi, Irene. Thank you.
Oh.
It was beautiful. Tragic.
I'll see you in Nova.
See you at Nova. My question for you is, and this is the question I always have for survivor, you know, immediately following liberation, that time, you know, finding out the reality of what has been going on around you for years, and obviously understanding the reality that, or finally learning that your family is gone. I mean, where do you start? I mean, it's one thing to lose someone in your family to an illness, but it's another situation to lose your family the way you did and to find out what the world was like after everything was over. How do you process that without going mad? And did you ever feel that way?
It was very difficult because the world still hated us after all that. So I myself, I was only, you know, a young person, and I was still afraid. I was afraid to be Jewish. I would never tell anybody that I was Jewish. And I was lucky because when my hair grew back and it was light and I didn't look Jewish, so I got away with it. But even after so much, I was still afraid. And I'm sure that a lot of survivors did the same thing. But the world still really hated us. after
But
all.
how did you as a person, how did you,
I was
how do you,
still surviving. I was still surviving.
yeah,
I was still fighting my way through different things. I didn't go much into crowds. To the very day, I do not like big crowds because when during the Holocaust, a big crowd was always killed. They always targeted a big crowd. So I avoided that, and I still do today. And with the virus, we have to do that anyway. So yeah, and it was very difficult to come back to reality and know that I can go out in the street and nobody is gonna take me away or punish me for something I didn't do. It was very difficult to get back to real life.
yeah.
And yeah, but day by day, little by little, you had to kind of condition yourself and say, okay, it's over, but it's never over because inside, it's you. I'm still a prisoner in Auschwitz.
I mean,
And
that does
so
make sense. That you survived the Holocaust, and now you have to survive
the
living
virus,
with,
I will
not,
survive the virus.
no. Now you have to survive. Now, after you survive the war, now you have to survive on your own for the rest of your life, you
Oh,
know? So I
yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Anyway, thank you, Irene. Thank you.
yeah. But that's life. We got to accept life the way it is. We got to deal with it the best way we can. And I don't want to never think about bad things. Like when somebody says this is a bad person, he shouldn't be here, she shouldn't be there. I don't believe in that. I don't think that a person is that bad. I mean, it's a person, and it's we have to honor that. God created us all, so I don't judge, I don't I don't accuse, and I just see the good in people. Some have a lot, some have little, but that's okay. That's what the world is about. So I learned that I have to accept what comes my way because that's the way it is. And I deal with it as best as I could, and it's okay. I don't regret a minute of it. I am grateful for every minute that I am here.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm very touched by the story. It's the first time I ever hear a story like this. I come from Spain and now I'm living here in Miami. I have a question about when you were little and you saw the main Hungarian that tried to save you. Did you after that investigate again and find out who he was, or you ever met him again, or you know something about him, or never knew what happened to him, because he's the one who actually saved you, right? So I
Uh,
wonder, that's like an angel, like
you
appear
mean
in your,
you mean the soldier?
yeah, the Hungarian man that told you,
I
I'm
guess.
gonna save you because I only have 3 more days of life.
Oh, he
Uh,
was a Sonderkommando. He was
uh,
a Jewish man that worked in the gas chamber, and they were
oh.
called. I'll tell you. You know anything about them?
No, I don't know anything. I'm learning now here.
No. Okay. A Holocaust. A Sonderkommando is a group of men and boys that Mengele chose when they came in from every country in Europe. Each train had people from each country, and he chose from each country the strongest boys and men to work in the gas chamber. Their job is to appease people when they let them into the gas chamber, and when they were dead, their job was to put them in the oven and burn them.
Mm,
The problem was they only gave these boys and men 3 to 4 months to live. And after that, they would kill all of these and choose new ones because they didn't want, they knew too much. They didn't want them to know all that. So they, the Sonderkommando had a different life there, but it wasn't their life. It was only a short time that they were allowed
Mm.
for doing their dirty work. And but if they didn't do it, they were killed right away.
Wow.
So that's was the boy was only 18 years old, but he was a strong boy, so he was chosen to work there.
Mm.
And he was trying, they were trying, the Sonderkommando was always trying to save lives. And I'll tell you an example. At one time, there was, they put all the people into the gas chamber and they threw the gas in. So some people died on the ground, and some people were on top of others because if the gas was coming from the bottom, they were trying to get up on top. When the gas was coming from the top, they were trying to go under the people underneath them.
Mm.
So when they opened the door, the Sonderkommando found a 12-year-old girl that was alive. And that was like a miracle. Nobody was alive there, but she was alive.
Mm.
And so they took her to their quarters were like on top of the, near the gas chamber. And they took her upstairs and they gave her food and they asked Mengele to save her because she was already in the gas chamber and she survived, to put her back in camp. And he said, I have no room for 12-year-olds in camp. She has to go back to the gas chamber. And he put her back in the gas chamber.
Wow.
But that's what the Sonderkommando had to live with, stuff like that. So, if they killed them in 3-4 months after they were working and they experienced such a thing, like one Sonderkommando is in my movie called The Last Days,
Mm.
and he lives in Los Angeles, and he saw two of his friends were taken into the gas chamber on the day he was working there.
Wow.
And he went over to them and he says, I can't take you out of here, but I can give you food. I can do whatever you want me to do. So he gave them food and water, whatever they wanted. And he told them where they should stand to die quick, not to suffer. So that's what they were doing. The Sonderkommando was trying to help people. They couldn't save anybody's lives because they wouldn't let them.
Mm. Wow.
And so then when they tried, they were so mad what they were doing. They couldn't take it anymore, that they were killing so many people on command. They were trying to destroy the crematorium. So the girls that worked in the ammunition factory, they were stealing the powder, the gunpowder, and bring it back to camp in their mouth, in their vagina, and wherever they could, because we didn't have any clothes or anything to hide things. They brought it back with little bits, and they brought enough stuff for the Sonderkommando to blow up the gas chamber, because they said if we blow up the gas chamber, they won't have a place to kill. So they blew up one gas chamber because they didn't have enough, material to blow up. But they were all caught and they were all killed.
Wow.
But at least they did a job and they destroyed one. So at least is one less that was killing people every single day.
Wow.
But, when they say that, we went to the slaughter like sheep, that's not true. We resisted every way we could. And we didn't have guns, we didn't have anything to fight with, but just staying alive was resisting, because they only gave us 90 days to live after we were there, because our ration was about 60 calories a day.
Wow.
So how long can you live on that? So they figured we will live 3 months and then we will all die. But we didn't. We survived the 90 days. And we did whatever we could. We went in the garbage and we took out whatever we could and we ate whatever we can. There was no grass on the ground, so we couldn't eat the grass, because if there would have been, I would have eaten it. One
Wow.
child on the March of the Living said to me, we were walking from the building to the gas chamber and it was snowing, but it was not big snow, but the grass was like, coming up from the snow. And she says, I am so glad that you had grass when you were here, because you had no shoes. I says, honey, if that grass would have been here, I would have eaten it.
Hmm.
There was no grass here. It was all mud. So yeah, those are the things that we can't even share, because like there is never enough time. Like
Yeah.
Fran said, she always learns something new. Steven Spielberg, whenever he watches my movie or reads my book, he also tells me I learned something new, because we can't tell it all in one shot. It's too much.
Yeah. We learned a lot today, and you are a truly hero, a survivor. I think many of us were giving up, right? Just
You can always call me and ask me, and I'll be happy to answer all your questions.
thank you.
Thank you, Irene. We have another question. If Sandra Asling, if you would please unmute.
I can hear you.
Yes, I'm here. Now,
Hi, Irene, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I was just doing some background information on you on Google, so I can't wait to
Oh, you saw me on Google? I was on Google.
Yeah, so I was finding some information about your movie. Thank you very much. I enjoy everything you're saying, and you're a great storyteller. I think we all agree. We visioned everything you said, and I'm here with my daughter, and we could hear. Would you mind telling me where in Hungary you're from? Were you near the Romanian border, or where were you?
No, I was in the Carpathian Mountains.
Oh, okay.
It's between, it's in Hungary. Well, at that time it was Hungary. It changes, now it's Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
And at one time it was, before my time, it was Czechoslovakia. So all those regions are always, somebody else owns them. I went back to my home in '98, and it was all the Ukraine is now there, and they own my house and everything. And I went to see my house because I wanted my daughter to see where I slept and where I ate and where I did my homework, and they wouldn't let me in.
But it was still there.
Oh yeah, it was still there.
Wow, that's miraculous.
And other people own it, but they wouldn't let me in. He said, this belongs to us and you can't come in. So I went down to the cellar, because the cellar, you had to go from the outside to that cellar. And my grandmother she was amazing. She was canning everything, mushrooms and berries and all that. And her jars were still on the shelves down there.
wow.
After all those years. And then, when my mother we were 6 children. So my mother always had a baby. And the baby was always given a bath in a baby bathtub. So there was a little bathtub for a baby. And it was, one bathtub was still in the cellar, filled with water. Like it was waiting for a baby.
Wow.
And I says, I wish I could take this with me, but they wouldn't let me. They wouldn't. And, my father's spa, the water that he was using for people that were, had problems, are drinking water. He developed it. And now it's animated and it's bottled and it's all over the world. And it is a healing water. I know I have Crohn's, and when I drink that water, I have no problems. So I went back there, and they, of course, wouldn't let me be, I couldn't even say that my father was the owner, because like I was afraid I was going to get hit over the head, because they're afraid that I came to take it back or something. So, but I managed to get 2 cases of water I brought back, and I still have a bottle up there. Can you reach that bottle up there? And it's all over the world. You can find it everywhere. And this is the bottle. See? And it's in Russian. It's in Russian.
I would like to find it in the US. You should send a link. You should let the organizers know the name who could find it.
Yeah, well, I have the bottle, so everything, all the information is right here on the. You can find it in drugstores because they
Oh.
sell it as some kind of a healing thing.
Okay.
But this water is like, oh my God.
Thank you very much, Irene. I just wanted to share that my father was a survivor too, but he was more on the Romanian,
Yeah, he was, yeah,
Hungarian
well,
side.
we were bordering Romania, and Romania was Hungary at
Yes.
the same time that we were.
Yes.
So, like we went with the Romanian Jews and the Hungarian Jews from that part. We went on the same train.
Yes,
went
from
time. Yeah.
yeah, he told me from the Marmarash, from the
Maramoras.
Marmarash.
Maramoras Siget.
Yes, exactly. From 44, yes. So, but he was not as articulate as you. So I really appreciate all you have to say. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I try and teach the future generations so they can learn. That's what's important.
Thank you, Irene. We have a question from Commissioner Florimond.
Okay.
If you would please unmute.
Good evening. Good evening. I just want to say that, first of all, I'm glad that you have your mother's diamonds.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. And I'm so happy, that you have those diamonds and what they mean to your family and your heritage and your.
That's the only thing that I have from my family is these diamonds.
That is.
And that bottle, that empty bottle that my father developed, were involved, in the water. And that's all I went back twice to my hometown, and I went to City Hall, and I went to everywhere I could to find one piece of literature with maybe my father's signature on it, or maybe a piece of newspaper that was printed after we left. Nothing. Everything destroyed.
Wow.
Nothing.
And the fact that you were able to hold on to them and the fact that they were able to make it through all of that and to be here today as a testament to is a testament to who you are and to the history of your family. So that's a very beautiful thing. I just wanted to ask you, right now, in our country, in our nation, we're seeing so much divisiveness and so much hate.
Yes, a lot of hate.
What words do you have for this generation as it relates to tolerance and advancing a worthy cause while being tolerant to each other?
Well, that's the main thing, is to love each other, to help each other, to care for another. Don't be afraid to hug somebody if you feel like you want to. Don't hold back on the good things in life, and don't dwell on this terrible things that surround us. Just concentrate on fighting hatred, because hatred is the cause of all evil. And I have been through it, and I have witnessed it, and I saw it firsthand, and I'm fighting hatred wherever I can. And I urge everyone to do the same. But meanwhile, hug each other too. And care and take care of each other. That's, like in the camp, in the death camps, there was nobody that could help me. Not a man, woman, or child was able to help me because they were in the same position. They couldn't get help either. So who helped me? Why am I here? How did I get here? I was only 13 years old. I had barely made it through 3rd grade. I had no education. I had nothing to fall back on. I had no family, no friends, nobody. So how did I get here? I believe that God got me here because that's the only person. I don't know if it's a person or whatever. Whatever he is, I can only say that because of him, I'm here.
Thank you for that encouragement. Irene, we have a question from our mayor, Anthony DeFilippo, who joined us this evening.
Sure.
Mayor, if you can please unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Irene, I want to tell you, number one, how honored it is to be in this platform this evening. I tapped in a little bit late, but I heard most of your story.
You can read my book.
But believe me, I'm going to indulge and I'm going to read because having heard everything that you had to go through is just a testament to the times that we are in right now of how much more we need to come together as one.
Absolutely.
Your words were perfectly said, where we must all, as individuals, walk with faith, knowing that we need to love and care and treat one another with respect. And your words of everything that you went through, I mean, what we're going through right now in this world, you know, is and again, it's a lot, but compared to what you had to go through and the people had to go through during this Holocaust, you know, and where we are today, we've come a long way, but you know what? There's still a long way to go.
And we will make it through.
You know, with faith.
Yes.
With faith and belief is the only way to do it.
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for your beautiful words this evening. You know, may God bless you and still continue to give you a beautiful life and all the children and grandchildren and everybody that you enjoy every day. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be with you this evening. Thank you so much.
So much. I'm so honored to be here and to talk to you because I would never meet you otherwise. First of all, we're too far away. You're in Miami and I am in Broward. But yeah, I am grateful to be here. I am honored to meet you all. And I am
Well,
just,
you're one of our heroes. You really are.
thank you so much. Thank you. You are an inspiration.
Thank you so much. Many blessings.
Thank you, Mayor. Irene, we have a question.
Yes.
That says they want to know if all the Sundermen, Sunder commandos were always Jewish.
Well, yeah, yes, they were all Jewish.
Okay, and we have with us Hadassah Weiner Friedman. She's a school teacher and part of our library board, and she wanted to say something to you. Hadassah, you can unmute.
Okay.
Irene, it's a pleasure to see you again. I had the honor of meeting you in person. Now I remember you came to Sebo Palm Elementary a few years ago, and you made a beautiful presentation that impacted my students in many ways. And I wanted
to teaching 8th grade.
This was elementary school here in North Miami Beach.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So I had the pleasure to meet you in person, and actually they made a beautiful presentation for you as well. And I am, you know, you're such a source of inspiration that is just amazing because, you know, we think that we're going through a lot in our minds and on our daily things that we're dealing with right now. But what you have lived through, you know, it's, I don't know. I don't know if I will be able to overcome that. But I have learned that it's a very special thing to receive a blessing from a Holocaust survivor. And if we're going to end the meeting, or at any time that we're going to end the meeting, to please honor us with a blessing.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hadassah. That's wonderful. It would be our honor to receive a blessing from you. And I don't see any other hands. If Moran, who has been a wonderful partner with us, yes, we can give her a round of applause. She has been great collaborating with us and bringing us your story. Thank you, Irene. It really has been touching. And Moran wanted to share a few words, but Moran, if you can please indulge me, I do want to put a plug. If anybody is interested, we will have another author tomorrow sharing about the Jews in Florida history tomorrow in our library Zoom. So we invite those that are interested to join us. They can check our webpage and Facebook, because I think our stories do not get told enough of, and it's in overcoming. Your friend Zaka, that story just really touched me. And that encouragement is something we all need from one another. So Moran, if you can please.
Anytime you want me to do, I'll do.
Thank you so much, Irene.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you, Adina.
Great to be here and to meet you all.
I would like just to say a few words. First of all, Irene, I want to say to you something that I really noticed when you shared your story is, again, the fact that after the Holocaust, you didn't speak about it. And I've been working with hundreds of survivors probably by now. And it's basically the same with everybody, including my grandma. You didn't speak about it for decades after that, until Schindler's List came out.
Yeah.
So all the survivors would say that Schindler's List definitely, it changed history. You know, it had the courage to speak about what is not spoken and to share light.
Mission.
Yes, and that's actually changed also, it changed you as well. It changed all the survivors. It's kind of allowed you to share your message. And so that's something I do want to put out there for all of you who ask, like, how can we actually make sure that we'll have unity and acceptance? It's really speaking about life, speaking about the unspoken and being a stand for it. I do want to mention the fact that right now in this event, we have so many commissioners and we have the mayor over here, and it's something that we cannot take even for granted. We cannot take it for granted. The fact that you found time to be here, and our volunteers that are volunteering every day with our Holocaust survivors, and they are here. The fact that you give your time for something like that mean a lot. It's give us a lot of hope as a society. So thank you. And
we love you for it.
No, it's my privilege. It's my right to do that. And you know, I really want just to share an International Remembrance Day that Holocaust Heroes for me started as a project inside of a leadership program I did called Team Management Leadership Program. And that was the first time I'm a Jewish girl. I was raised in Israel and I was part of the Jewish community. And that was actually the first time that I started having conversations about the Holocaust with non-Jews communities. And when I did that, I also discovered that we as Jews have trauma, as well as other communities, African Americans and other Chinese and every community have our own trauma and our own pain. And speaking to one another about that allowed me to have more acceptance and unity and connection to other people. So I'm very grateful, not only to speak about the good things and the fun things, but also speak about the pain with other communities. And that's why I think that this committee, the Multicultural Committee, is so important and doing such important work. And thank you again, Lynn, and thank you everybody in the committee, and Commissioner Kramer, thank you for actually creating it. And Irene, of course, a big thank you for you for doing it day after day and having it your life mission.
Thank you, Moran. You are doing a great job. And that's why it makes it possible for us to do what we do also. And you're talking about other communities, and I agree because I go everywhere. I have spoken in every church, in every college, in every high school in Indiana, and every place where there are no Jewish people, but there are people. And they need to know, and they want to know, and they learn, and it makes them better people and more understanding to other people. So I am very grateful when I am called to places like that. So I can understand what you mean when you're talking about, yes, we have to share everything with everybody, no matter where they are or who they are. And I am proud to do that. And I've been doing it all the time. My whole time I am speaking, I'm speaking everywhere. So not just this school because it's a Jewish school, and not just this school because it's a community school, all the schools, all the churches, all the temples, all the communities. So yes, I agree with you, and I'll be working with you.
Thank you, Irene. And thank you again for Commissioner Kremer for your leadership. Really.
Oh, thank you. I'm really speechless. I don't even know what to, there's so many questions to ask. And I just want to say to Irene, just, echo what everyone's been saying. You really, God wanted you to survive this because you're just so important in society and outspoken. And even though it took time for you to do this, thank God it's better late than never. And to be able to recount this story, which I would have to imagine you had to write something down all these years, because memories, not that a memory as atrocious as this could ever
Well,
leave you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to tell you something, and I spoke to this about this with Steven Spielberg.
Mhm.
Our experience and stories are so huge that I can sit here and talk to you about incidents, experience, things for hours.
Right.
It never ends.
Right.
And I wrote an 885-page book for my son, because when he found out that I was a Holocaust survivor, and he didn't know that I was until he was 13 years old.
Wow.
And he said he got so angry that they did this to me. He didn't want to know about anything else about the Holocaust. So I was afraid that if anything happens to me and he will read a book or saw a movie or talk to another survivor, he will be confused because he wouldn't know which was when. So I wrote the book for him.
Mm-hmm.
From beginning to end, it was 800 and some odd pages. And I never intended to publish it. I just wanted him to have it after I'm gone, because he would never even read it. He never read this one, and he will not read it until I'm gone, because I don't know, something happens to him when so he just can't handle it.
Right.
So when I decided to publish the book, after we did The Last Days, and Steven Spielberg said, I says, will The Last Days interfere with the publishing of my book? And he says, no, it will enhance your book. But before you publish it, I want to read it. So I gave him the book, and he took one look at it. He says, no. You don't publish this book. You can keep it for whatever reason you wrote it, but you have to shrink it to a 1 hour speech instead of 4, because nobody can sit there for 4 hours and listen to a Holocaust tragedy. So that's why this is reduced from 800 pages He says, I want you to pick out the most important things, the most things that is important to listen to and to learn from. Most of that. No pictures in the books and none of that, because pictures distract from reading. So you notice that my book only has one little picture in the back. After you read the book, it's a picture of myself when I was in the Holocaust, and the diamonds, and my picture of now. And that's all that you see in my book. Everything else. And he says, and then I want you to reduce it to about 200 pages and then you publish it. And that's what it is.
Wow. I mean, really, your story, and I have only heard a very small amount of stories, and really only till maybe a year ago. I've met Holocaust survivors. I once had 2 customers in the same, I don't remember now if it was the same day or the same week, that were Holocaust survivors. But, you know, I wasn't going to ask all those questions. It wasn't appropriate in the time and what I was with them for. But it was only recently. I mean, I never got this in high school and Hebrew school for whatever reason. But to hear your story is truly, it's remarkable. It's something that'll never leave me. I don't think it'll leave any of us. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate for all that you've been through, being able to express it, being able to talk about it. I know people whose grandparents or parents, for that matter, have denounced their Judaism because it just made, yes, because they didn't believe in God anymore. God would never do this. And it's a tragedy in that respect. So thank you so much. And just before we close this, I know there is one young lady from the Basher family that has her hand up. I'm going to let them speak, but I also want to introduce, I didn't mention our city manager, who is also on this meeting. We have, our chief of staff, and I believe we have our assistant manager here with us. And, this truly has been an amazing event for the city of North Miami Beach to present. And this recording certainly is something that we will make sure is out there for everyone to watch. So, Mr. Manager, I don't know if you want to speak first, or we want to take this last question from the Basher family. Y'all just try to see what you want to do first. And thank you again so much, Irene. Thank you.
Yeah, Commissioner, thank you so much for allowing me to. Yes, this was such a compelling and riveting story. And I hate to call it a story. It's a sharing of a life experience. There's a saying that every man thinks his burden is the heaviest. But when I listen to this, I mean, it just shows what humanity has gone through, despite our different hues and despite where we're from. What it tells you, though, is that in the midst of all this evil and what the human heart can conjure up, that there is hope, because there are people out there that in the midst of this will really do care. And so in times like this, when there is so much division and, we are reminded that we can come to that proverbial table and have a discussion and share who we are. And it's just a beauty of the humanity which is still within all of us, despite that evil that wants to shine through. So in listening to this, this real life experience, I'm really moved by it. But I know that there's hope eternal in humanity, because we can turn this around, and that's what we share when we come to that proverbial table. So thank you so much. I mean, great work by the Multicultural Committee again, and just thank you so much, North Miami Beach. I just love what we do. Thank you, Multicultural Committee, and keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for learning and caring.
Okay, so let's
You're welcome.
have a question from the Basher family. I hope I'm pronouncing that all right.
thank you for being so brave to
Hi.
share this story.
So cute.
I am 13, and because of your bravery, I am able to live a life of Tyra and honor the people who passed away al Kiddush Hashem. So it's important to hear all of this because my great-grandparents went through the Holocaust, but I was never able to meet them. So it's important to understand and to for you to tell us about what happened.
Did you listen when I spoke?
Yeah.
You were here. So yeah, it's my mission to tell you what happened so you can learn. And
I can't believe you were my age during all this.
yeah, I was your age. I was your age.
You're brave.
So imagine a little girl going to a place where it was so horrible and come out of it. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening and learning, and it will be so important in your lifetime. Things when you learn about the Holocaust, things happen to you, good things happen to you, but they don't happen overnight. They happen every now and then during your whole life. Something will happen and you will remember and you will say, yeah, that's true. I heard that. I know that. And it enriches your life, and you become grateful and caring, and you know what's important in life. And that's what this is about.
Yeah. Thank you for teaching me.
I'll come to your school when it's safe. Okay?
Tell her LEC, Lubavitch Education.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to LEC, Lubavitch Educational Center.
Yeah? In Miami?
North Miami. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good.
Irene, I think we had a request before for us before we end that you'll bless us. In the Jewish culture, you called tzaddikim because that's who you are for us. Like tzaddikim, it's mean a higher soul, and it will be a privilege for you to bless us as a society, as a community, especially sitting right now inside of this space that have so many cultures together and so many backgrounds, and it's just beautiful. So would you honor us with a blessing to the end?
Well, I am not a rabbi, and but I bless you all with good things for all your lives and important things that should happen in your lives, and just don't dwell on something that it hurts, or you feel that it's not proper or it's not in place. Just deal with it as best that you can and get through it and go on, move on with your life, and just look at the good things in life.
Thank you.
So I can't bless because only rabbis, they know how to bless.
That was a beautiful blessing, and it was the blessing for what's important in life.
Yeah, most important in life is to be important.
So thank you for you, and thank you for everybody that joined. Commissioner Kramer, would you like to say a few words to the end of the event?
I just, basically, I can't thank you enough for having the courage to been able to bring this forward all these years when you finally, something got to you, like you said, the movie, The Schindler's List, which if any of you on this forum this evening haven't seen it, it's an extraordinary movie, so well done. And it tells just such an amazing story that through all the horror. There are good people
Yes.
that did things that at first, they were part of the system, and they broke away and realized the horror of what they were doing. And many people survived, because of Oscar Schindler. And I just thank everyone for being here this evening. Please never forget, make sure you let people know about this story that you heard tonight. Read Irene's book. Just it's just so important that we share this. I mean, personally, when you think about what we're going through today, right? And this is a blip in our life, and certainly for Irene, there was no blip in her life. This is forever. And the fact that people complain so much, and yes, we want life to get back to normal because of COVID, but sometimes you just got to stop and realize how ridiculous we sound when there's just horrors that people have experienced, and how spoiled we are. And it's a shame. We must stay grounded. We must know what's really important in life. Just be good. Be a good human being. Tell the truth. Be respectful. And don't allow hate to happen. Bullying shouldn't happen. And put a stop also to things that that aren't right. Because if we all just look the other way because we don't want to be involved, we don't want to say anything. I'm one of those people, I don't look the other way. I get in it and dig my feet into things, because our world isn't going to get better if we allow people to just get away with terrible things that they do, no matter what the spectrum of it is. It's really important to just be true to yourself, be true to other human beings, and let's try to just make a better world, because the way things look right now, I'm sure Irene it must be horrible. You've got to put your hands over your eyes and say, God, if only people knew. So thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here tonight.
Thank
And
you so
let's
much
never
for
forget.
having. And Commissioner,
Mhm.
anytime you need me anywhere and any of your programs, I am there.
Okay, well, let's get rid of these masks and get rid of,
Yeah.
be free, so we can be together and we can.
We will.
I know.
We will.
We will. Well, thank you again, and thank you all so much, and you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too, and thank you for having me.